I stayed with Lu Shuren for 10 years, from his ragged youth to his rise as the most powerful man in court. Yet he only ever called me elder sister later. He welcomed his true love into his home, and I fell gravely ill before I died. He held my cooling body, his eyes red. If there is a next life, I will give you a proper name, a wife's name. The next life truly came. I was 16, the age for marriage. My family held a ball-tossing ceremony on our embroidered balcony to choose my husband among the crowd of guests. I recognized him at once. The silk ball left my hand, flying straight for him. The man froze for a heartbeat, then he stepped aside. The ball rolled into the arms of a beggar behind him. The cheers on the street died instantly. A deathly silence spread. Everyone held their breath, their eyes darting between me on the balcony, Lu Shuren, and the beggar. Lu Shuren looked up, meeting my gaze from 3 jong away. In that moment, I remembered with a jolt I had lived this scene before. In my last life we had been childhood sweethearts, then his family fell into ruin, and he could barely eat. I pitied him. I secretly took silver from the Shun manor to pay for his studies. Gradually, affection grew between us. He even promised me we would be together forever. So when father told me to toss the ball for a husband, I secretly told Lu Shuren to stand right in the center. When I threw, I aimed perfectly, sure he would catch it. I thought he would, but he stepped aside just like that. The ball fell to the beggar behind him. Just like now, whispers broke out among the crowd. All eyes were on me. I stared at him through the people. What had he told me back then? Red-eyed, guilty, holding my hand. Zhua, all these years I've leaned on you, on the Shun family. If I marry you today, people will gossip. What will the world think of me, of you? I refused the ball because I didn't want to wrong you. Trust me, when I make my name and fortune, I will welcome you into my home in full splendor. I had been foolish enough to believe him. For those empty words, I endured everyone's stares and refused to marry the beggar. When father heard, he flew into a rage, saying I had ruined the Shun family's century-old reputation. He made me kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days and 3 nights. Still, I gritted my teeth and held fast. But what happened after? He told me that on his way to the capital exams, he had been attacked by bandits and nearly died. A woman had saved him. Her name was Su Wn, the legitimate daughter of the Su family. She asked for nothing, only that he repay her kindness with marriage. He had agreed, so he could not marry me, and he did make his name later, top scholar in 3 exams, glorious. And the woman he married was her. Red candles, 8 palanquin wedding, 10 li of red dowry. I stood in the crowd and watched the man I'd given everything to, dressed in red wedding robes, lead another woman into his manor. Before I could even grieve, disaster struck my family. Fearing they would drag me down, my parents hastily arranged a marriage for me. The man was not wealthy, but he could keep me fed and clothed. The only flaw, he was 12 years older than me. As I hesitated, Lu Shuren pushed open my door. He held out his hand to me. You have done me a great kindness, he said. I will not let you marry so casually from now on. I will protect you soon. He took me into his residence, not as wife, not as concubine, only as elder sister. His new wife, Su Wn, naturally hated it. Even though I was only his benefactor, his elder sister in name, she still saw me as a thorn in her eye. At first, I didn't understand. It had been Lu Shuren's choice to bring me here. Despite the gossip, logically, she should have hated him. But that was how women were in this world. They could not pour their anger on men, so they turned and bit another woman instead. Thankfully, her schemes were clumsy, mostly just cutting my rations and belongings, jewelry, fuel, rice, oil, salt. It meant little to me, so I didn't bother fighting back until that bitterly cold winter. She gave me almost no charcoal. I had no choice but to go ask her for more. I pushed open her door. Su Wn sat by a small red clay stove, peeling chestnuts Lu Shuren had roasted for her with his own hands. When she saw me, she didn't even lift her eyes. Oh, elder sister is here. Her tone was light. Are the servants not treating you well? I looked at her and spoke plainly. The west courtyard has no charcoal. My maid has a cold. She only laughed softly, tossing a chestnut shell into the fire. Don't be angry, elder sister. My husband has just established himself in court. Everything requires money. The house truly has no extra silver. I've always thought you were understanding. You gave everything for him when you were at the Shun manor. Surely you'd spare a little charcoal for his sake. She looked up, her eyes sharp with provocation. After all, elder sister, you're just an outsider if you eat and drink here for free. You ought to know your place. Every word was a stab. I opened my mouth to argue, then a voice. Master has returned. Lushuran stepped in, wrapped in a thick cloak, snow still on his clothes. He froze when he saw me. Su Wn immediately went to him, leaning into his arms. Husband, elder sister is blaming me for not giving her charcoal, but you know the household expenses. I truly have no extra silver. Her voice was pitiful. Lushuran frowned without hesitation. He looked at me. Elder sister, WNN has a hard time managing the household. Endure for now. When things improve, I will have someone bring you more. I stared, stunned. If this was how he acted, what could I possibly say? I only whispered, very well. I turned and walked back to the freezing west courtyard. From that day on, I fought Su Wn openly, not for Lushuran. Out of resentment, I had helped Lushuran when he was at his lowest. The Lu family owed me. Even without love, I did not deserve to be treated like this. I had to keep my dignity. When she cut my food and supplies, I argued with the accountants. When she spread rumors about me, I confronted her face to face, but every time, I was the one forced to back down. Lushuran's rule was simple. Su Wn came first, always. Once she falsely accused me of stealing her jade hairpin, letting the whole manor know. I found out her own maid had lost it, and laid the proof before everyone. Lushuran was silent for a long time, then he only said, elder sister, she is young. She doesn't know better, don't quarrel with her. In that moment, I stared at him for a long while. He felt like a stranger when he was destitute. I protected him, letting no one bully him. Now that he was a high minister, he made me yield. Why? It was then I realized, true feelings are not always returned in this world. The world only cares about one thing, a conscience. And the worst time was when Su Wn poisoned me. Not deadly, just enough to make me vomit and weaken, to humiliate me. When I found out, I could hold back no longer. I slapped her across the face. She clapped a hand to her cheek, screamed, and ran crying to Lushuran. That night, he came to the west courtyard. He ordered me to kneel and apologize to Su Wn. I froze when I heard those words. I, Shunruju, came from a noble house. My knees only bowed to heaven, earth, and my parents, and now he was making me kneel to her. I refused, but he ordered his servants to hold me down. With a command, the servants surrounded me and picked up wooden clubs by the door. Once, twice, 3 times they beat my legs. A sharp crack. Agony exploded through me. I could not help but kneel. Through blurry eyes, I saw Su Wn standing over me, a smile curving her lips. That night, Lushuran came to the west courtyard alone, probably feeling guilty. He looked at my useless legs, sighed, and reached for my hand. I pulled away coldly. He stiffened, and said bitterly, elder sister, I wronged you today. WNN, she saved my life. I swore to her I would never let her suffer. Hearing that explanation, I could only laugh. Lushuran, you say you cannot betray her for saving your life. What about me? When you collapsed starving in the snow, who carried you back to the Shan Manor? Did I not save you too? Why did you betray me? But I was too tired to say it anymore. The broken leg, plus the winter cold, I fell gravely ill. Grief weighed on my heart. My health declined rapidly. Even when Lushuran panicked and called the best physicians in the capital, it was too late. On the day I died, snow fell heavily outside. Lushuran knelt by my bed, red-eyed, clutching my bony hand. He promised me, word by word, elder sister, I failed you in this life. If there is a next life, I will welcome you home in an 8 palanquin wedding. I looked at him, no emotion in my eyes. What did I say back then? I remembered. With my last strength, I pulled my hand away little by little. I said, Lushuran, in the next life, let us never meet again. The moment I closed my eyes, I heard his heartbroken sobs. But I never thought I would open my eyes again and truly be reborn. I had returned to the day of the ball tossing. Oh no, the ball fell to a beggar. The crowd's exclamations pulled me back to the present. I stood high on the balcony, looking down. Lushuran stood in the middle of the crowd. Behind him, the filthy beggar clutched the bright red silk ball tightly. At a loss, I recalled my last words in my past life. I recalled every injury, every humiliation. I decided I would never entangle myself with Lushuran again. I had sworn it, so I straightened my skirt, and under my maid's shocked gaze, turned and walked down the balcony. The crowd parted for me automatically. Lu Shuren watched me approach, a flicker of triumph in his eyes. He thought I would throw a scene like last time, refuse this absurd marriage for his sake. He even stepped forward slightly, ready to use the same words as before, Miss Shen. But I walked straight past him without a glance. I stepped right around him step by step. I walked toward the beggar holding the ball. He was filthy, huddled in the crowd like a frightened stray cat. When I came near, he flinched back half a step, yet held the ball even tighter, carefully, as if afraid to break it. I stopped in front of him. He dared not lift his head, his voice trembling violently. Am I miss? I didn't mean it. It fell by itself. I didn't answer because I suddenly remembered something in my past life, when I insisted on breaking the engagement with this beggar. The Shen family was clearly in the wrong. Father had ordered someone to give him 500 taels as compensation. Surprisingly, he had refused it. I remembered what the steward had reported. The beggar said he was not worthy of the young lady, nor of the silver. Back then, my heart and eyes were only for Lu Shuren. How could I care what a beggar said? Now I realized, this man had rare sense. At the very least, he was kind by nature, so marrying someone like him, maybe it wasn't such a bad thing. I looked at him. What is your name? He froze, then lifted his head. The wind blew, lifting his messy long hair. His face was too dirty to make out, but his eyes were clean. I'm Afu. I nodded. How old are you? TW, 20. Where is your home? I have no home. He answered obediently to every question. The crowd fell quiet, confused. Why was the eldest daughter of the Shen family asking a beggar these things? I ignored their stares. When I finished, I turned toward father on the balcony. Father, I choose him. An uproar broke out. Has Miss Shen lost her mind? She's going to marry a beggar. Amid the whispers, Lu Shuren could no longer stand still. He pushed through the crowd and stepped in front of me. Miss Shen, his voice was low, as if speaking for my own good. Marriage is a serious matter. How can you treat it like a game? Do you know who this man is? A street beggar who can barely feed himself. If you marry him, how will you live? I couldn't help but laugh at his words. What else was I supposed to do? Not marry him, and marry you instead? I chose you in my last life. Did you ever treat me well? But I couldn't say any of that out loud, so I just looked at him. Our eyes locked. Time ticked by. He hesitated, then stepped closer, his voice softer. Earlier, with the ball, I didn't dodge on purpose. There were too many people. I lost my balance and stepped back. It just fell. I've regretted it ever since. He kept explaining. I only found it ridiculous, not on purpose. Did he even believe that the ball had flown straight for him? If he had just stood still, he would have caught it easily, but he chose to step aside. He chose to dodge. Now that he'd gotten his way, with the ball in someone else's hands, he came running to say this. Wasn't it disgusting, Master Lu? I looked at him, my tone calm. The ball fell into his hands, not yours. So the man I will marry is him, not you. What right do you have to judge here? Lu Shuren, who had always known me as gentle, was stunned. His face changed. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The crowd began whispering again. Before he could say more, I turned directly to Afu and held out my hand. Let's go. He stared blankly at my hand. Finally, under everyone's gaze, he took it. As we passed Lu Shuren, I saw from the corner of my eye that he stood frozen, his face pale and green. But what did I care in this life? He and I were nothing to each other. Father naturally refused the marriage that same night. He ordered Afu chased out of the manor, then called me to the main hall, his hand shaking with rage. Shunruju, have you lost your mind? The Shen family has a 100-year reputation. How can you marry a beggar? I had expected this reaction. I knelt on the ground, calm and steady. Father, he caught the ball. By the rules, I must marry him. If we value our reputation, we cannot break our word. My reasoning was sound. Nonsense. Father paced angrily. Tomorrow I will send him away. Give him 500 taels, and we will act as if this never happened. No, I lifted my head. My expression was resolute, my gaze firm. Father, if you dare send him away, I will kneel at the city god temple until you agree to this marriage. Father stared, stunned. He had never imagined his daughter could be so unyielding. He finally spoke. What are you even after? What is so good about that beggar? I fell silent for a moment. He was indeed not a perfect match for me, but I remembered clearly in my past life, I had insisted on breaking this engagement later. When the Shun family fell into disaster, someone used this incident against father. They said the Shun family broke their word, regretted the marriage after catching the ball, and loved wealth while despising the poor. That had become the final straw that broke the Shun family. Father was dismissed from office. The family collapsed. Now that I had been reborn, how could I repeat that mistake? But I couldn't say any of this. After a long pause, I only said, we held a ball tossing to choose a husband. So we must keep our word. I will never be someone who changes her mind on a whim. Father looked at me with complicated eyes. In the end, he flicked his sleeve and left. The next day, I brought Afu back. I had the maids heat water and wash him from head to toe. I had clean clothes brought for him to change into. When he stood before me again, I froze. He wasn't bad-looking, thick eyebrows, big eyes, neat features, cleaned up. He looked better than most wealthy young men on the street. He was just a bit thin. It didn't matter. He could be nursed back to health. He stood there, not knowing where to put his hands or feet. Am I miss? I cut him off. From now on, call me Ruju. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say it. His face turned red. First on the third day, before the marriage was settled, Lu Shuren came. He didn't enter the manor. He just knelt at the front gate of the Shun residence. The midday sun blazed down. His back was straight. His blue robe was soaked through with sweat. When the news reached the back courtyard, I was teaching Afu to read. The matron hurried in, hesitating to speak. Miss, what should we do? I set down my brush. Afu looked up at me, unease in his eyes. I planned to send someone to send him away, but the matron spoke again. Miss, you did know each other once. You should go see him. People shouldn't say the Shun family is unkind. I thought for a moment, then stood and went to the gate outside. Lu Shuren knelt on the stone slabs. A crowd had gathered around the gate. He knelt rigidly. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Zhua. I stopped in front of him and spoke plainly. What are you doing here? It was the first time he had seen me so cold. He froze, his mouth opening and closing before he finally said, I beg you not to marry that beggar, please. Looking at him like this, I laughed. I couldn't help asking, if I don't marry him, then who should I marry? Marry you, perhaps. He froze, his expression stiffened. I didn't rush him, I just watched. After a long while, he lowered his head, his voice soft. I'm sorry, Zhua, I cannot marry you, because, he lifted his head, his eyes slightly red. Years ago, on my way to the capital exams, I met bandits. She saved my life and asked to marry me. I am a scholar, taught loyalty and integrity. I cannot break my word. I promised her. I'm sorry, Zhua. I listened, feeling nothing. The exact same words as my past life. The answer I expected. So, I looked at him. What did that have to do with me? So, I truly cannot marry you. He lifted his head sharply, his eyes redder. But I also cannot just watch you marry someone else. Listen to that. How absurd. He didn't want to marry me, but he didn't want me to marry anyone else either. So he wasted year after year of my life, until I withered away and died full of hatred. Shunruju, this was the man you once loved and trusted with all your heart. How ironic. I had no patience for him. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my sleeve tightly. Let go. He didn't. He held on even tighter. Zhua, listen to me. What is there to hear? I cut him off, yanking my arm hard. It didn't move. He held on like iron. Let go, I said again. His voice trembled. I won't. If I let go, you'll leave. I turned to look at him. The cold wind blew. Our sleeves tangled together. We stood facing each other, him half a step behind me. His eyes were red, his lips pressed tight. He looked as if he had been wronged terribly. I looked at him and suddenly felt tired. I truly did not understand the point of his stubborn entanglement. Lu Shuren, what exactly do you want? Zhua, he called my name again. Don't marry him. Okay, I said nothing. He lowered his head, his voice muffled. I really do like you. I really can't just watch you marry someone else. I froze. In my past life, I'd waited half my life for this sentence, even until death. Now I finally heard it, but I felt nothing, only absurdity. Look at this man, how strange. He says he likes me, yet he refuses to marry me. He gave the name and status I craved to another woman, and wasted my days away. Lu Shuren, Your love is truly cheap, so I felt no nostalgia, only slowly pulled my sleeve free. It's too late. He stared, stunned. I didn't look at him again. I turned and walked back. Behind me, he called, Jua. I did not turn. The wedding date was set for the 8th day of the 12th month. In the days that followed, I continued teaching Afu to read. After all, he would be the young master of the manor. He couldn't be completely illiterate on the first day. I taught him to write his own name, Afu. I held the brush and wrote it for him. He leaned close, stared at the 2 characters for a long time, then took the brush and copied them what he wrote. I was silent for a moment. Is that an earthworm? His face flushed bright red. He didn't know where to put his hands. I'll try again. 10 tries, 20 tries, still looked like earthworms. I set down my brush and sighed. He sighed too, head hanging, like a child who'd done wrong. Miss, am I too stupid? I didn't answer. He really wasn't very bright, but strangely, I didn't feel annoyed once. I would have grown impatient, but watching him scratch his head, sweating in anxiety, I only found it a little funny. It's okay. Take it slow. He lifted his head, eyes brightening. Really? He buried his head again and traced the characters stroke by stroke, extremely serious. He reminded me of a little dog-eyed. Raised as a child, clumsy, but obedient. Too bad reading doesn't depend on obedience, it needs talent. And he had none. After a whole month, he only knew how to write his own name. Luckily, he wasn't completely useless. He was surprisingly sharp at other things. One day I went to the front courtyard and found him talking to the manor's guards. One guard held a wooden staff, demonstrating moves. Afu stood beside him, watching without blinking. When the guard finished, Afu took the staff and repeated it. Exactly, the guard stared. So did I. He had watched the staff form once and already performed it perfectly. The guard refused to believe it and taught him a boxing set. Still, he learned it in one go. I watched for a long time. A phrase suddenly came to mind. The most ungrateful are always scholars, an old saying. Those who prattle morality and classics turn on you faster than anyone, like Lu Shuren. So not being good at books wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I might as well send him to learn martial arts. Maybe one day he could lead an army and bring honor to the Shen family. With that thought, I walked over. He had just finished his stance, sweat on his forehead. When he saw me, he grinned. Miss, how did I do? I looked at him. Do you want to be a general? He froze. Me, a general? He scratched his head, smiling shyly. I couldn't even beg for food properly. How could I be a general? I didn't reply, but I had made up my mind. From then on, I hired a martial arts master for him. 2 hours of training every day, rain or shine, horse stance, punches, blades, spears. He improved every day. After half a month, he was a changed man. His frame was straight, his shoulders broad, he walked with confidence. I had the kitchen feed him well every day. Chicken soup, pork knuckles, braised pork, never the same dish twice. He filled out, no longer the skin and bones beggar. His features had opened up, same eyes and brows, but a completely different spirit. Once he came back from training and found me drying books in the yard, he hurried to help, as he bent to carry them. Loose hair stuck to his face, wet with sweat, sunlight fell on his cheek. His profile was beautiful. I stared a little longer. He noticed my gaze and lifted his head. Miss, what's wrong? Nothing. I looked away. He nodded and continued carrying books. When he finished, he ran to pour me tea. As he handed me the cup, he even tested the temperature first. Not too hot, just right. I held the cup and watched his busy back. I suddenly thought of the past. I had once treated someone like this all those years. Lu Shuren lived with me. I poured his tea, bought his books and brushes, boiled his medicine, cooked his meals. When he took them, he only said thank you and nothing more. He never asked if I was cold, hungry, or happy. Never. But Afu, I only gave him a meal and a room, and he wanted to give me his whole heart. He feared I was thirsty, tired, unhappy. When I told him to learn martial arts, he trained like crazy. When I told him to read, he studied like crazy. Clumsy as he was, he never complained. Only then did I realize, people are different. Some repay a drop of kindness with their life, others take your kindness for granted, then hurt you until you're broken. Luckily, in this life, I chose right. I saw Lu Shuren again 3 months later. It was at a flower banquet hosted by the princess. I hadn't wanted to go, but the princess sent a personal invitation. It would have been rude to refuse, so I took Afu with me. The garden was full of flowers. Noble ladies sat in small groups. Drinking tea mid-conversation, I glimpsed two figures, Lu Shuren, and a woman in a pale yellow dress beside him. I recognized her at once, Su Wn. I set down my teacup. Lu Shuren wore a white silk robe today, looking elegant and handsome. Normally, only ladies attended flower banquets. Why was he here? As I wondered, I heard nearby whispers, "Isn't that Lu Shuren? Why is he here?" I heard Miss Su insisted he come to accompany her. The Su family is supporting his studies now, he can't refuse. True. Without that silly girl from the Shun family, he has to rely on the Su now. Shish, he's right there. I listened without expression. I see. Without me, Shun Ruju, he naturally needed a new backer. The Su family had money and power. Su Wn was a legitimate daughter, and she'd fallen for him naturally. She was his best choice to fawn on, but in this life, I had cut all ties with him. None of this concerned me anymore, so I looked away and slowly sipped my tea. I had wanted no contact with them at all. But someone insisted on coming over. Why, if it isn't Sister Shun? Su Wn had walked up to me, smiling innocently. Long time no see. Why are you sitting here alone? How lonely. I didn't move. What do you want? She covered her mouth and laughed. Nothing. I just heard you're getting married. I came to congratulate you. She paused and glanced behind me. Afu stood there, in a simple blue cloth robe, back straight. Su Wan's eyes swept over him, then back to me. This must be the young master who caught the silk ball. Her smile was meaningful. Your marriage has shocked the whole city. They say Miss Shun is righteous. She won't break the engagement even if the ball fell to a beggar. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. But I heard you originally meant to throw it to Master Lu. By now, everyone nearby was watching. I said nothing. She smiled on. Too bad Master Lu has long been devoted to me. That's why he had to let you find someone else. But, she glanced at Afu, her tone light. Isn't this someone else a little too simple, don't you think, sister? When you walk down the street later, won't people point and say, "Look, that's the Shun girl who married a beggar"? She laughed louder. I set down my teacup. I looked up at her, oval face, willow eyebrows, eyes slanting upward. When she smiled in that moment, I suddenly remembered something extremely important, so I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. Snap, a clear, sharp sound. Everyone nearby froze. Su Wn clapped a hand to her cheek, eyes wide, staring at me in disbelief. You dare hit me? I said nothing. I only watched the red mark rise on her face. The knot of anger that had choked me for 2 lifetimes finally loosened. To be honest, I'd wanted to slap her for a long time, waiting until this life was already too late, so I raised my hand again. Snap, a second slap. Su Wn shrieked, "You bitch!" She lunged at me like a madwoman. Before she could touch me, Afu blocked her. He stood in front of me and pushed her back with one hand. Su Wn stumbled, nearly falling. She turned to Lu Shuren, eyes instantly red. Shuren. Lu Shuren walked over. He first glanced at Su Wn, then at me, frowning. "Zhua," he lowered his voice. "What are you doing?" I said nothing. He sighed, his tone patient and lecturing. "I know you're angry, but you shouldn't hit someone. Wan, she speaks thoughtlessly, but she's still a young lady. How will she face anyone after this? We are all from scholarly families. We were raised on sage books, taught propriety and integrity. No matter how upset you are, you should reason." Not. He didn't finish. Afu's fist had already flown. One punch landed squarely on his face. Lu Shuren reeled back and crashed to the ground. Afu didn't let him finish. He threw another punch. "When she bullied my young lady, you said nothing. Now that she's getting what she deserves, you start talking about reason. How can anyone be as shameless as you?" "Shut up." It was clear Afu had been holding this in for a long time. Punch after punch landed. Lu Shuren curled on the ground, unable to fight back. The crowd gasped, but no one dared step forward. Su Wn shrieked and lunged to pull him away, but Afu shoved her aside with one arm. I watched and suddenly felt like laughing. In my past life, when I was bullied, no one stood up for me. Now a man who could barely write his own name was better than everyone I'd ever known before. "Afu," I called. He stopped and turned to me. "Young lady." I looked at him. "Let's go." He nodded, stood up, and returned to my side. Lu Shuren lay on the ground, blood at the corner of his mouth, staring daggers at me. He opened his mouth to speak. I didn't give him the chance. I turned and left with Afu. Not long after, the imperial conscription order arrived. I sent Afu to join the army. On the day he left, he stood at the city gate, struggling for a long time before saying, "Young lady, I will come back alive." I nodded. He mounted his horse and rode away. I later learned he hadn't dared turn around, afraid I would see him cry. He thrived in the army first year, earned a small merit, promoted to squad leader second year, went to the border with the general, beheaded an enemy commander, and returned as a captain. Letter after letter came home. His handwriting was still ugly, but everyone ended with, "Young lady, wait for me." I always replied with 2 words, "Waiting." Unfortunately, I didn't wait for his homecoming. Only news of trouble in court. Someone impeached father, accusing him of embezzlement while in office. They wanted to seize the manor and charge him. The same crime as my past life, the same scene, but this time, I had long prepared. So when the officials broke into the manor, I didn't panic. I slowly took out the evidence I'd gathered over the years. Just then, horse hooves thundered outside the gate. Afu charged in with his men. He wore armor, taller and broader than when he left, his face sharp with wind and sand. When the officials saw the token at his waist, they all froze. He stepped forward and stood in front of me. The leader's face paled again and again. In the end, he bowed and left with his men. Father stood stunned, unable to react. Afu turned to me. He looked down and grinned. "Young lady, I'm back." I looked at him. A few more scars, skin darker, but his eyes were still clean. He scratched his head and laughed again. "Still that silly boy." Later, father was reinstated. Afu was promoted to general for his merits. On the day the imperial edict arrived, father drank wine for once, clapping Afu on the shoulder and speaking for a long time. My marriage to Afu was near. On our wedding day, red candles burned bright, guests filled the hall. I wore a red wedding gown, sitting in the bridal chamber, my vision covered by the red veil. Candlelight painted the floor bright. I suddenly thought of my past life. There had been a similar scene back then. I had agreed to the marriage my family arranged. The same dim sky, the same bright candles. Lu Shuren had broken in. He held out his hand to me and said, "Jua, in this life, you must be with the one you love." I thought hard, and decided he was right. Without love, the rest of my life would be empty. So I refused that marriage and chose him without hesitation. Even after he humiliated me, I never thought of leaving, all for the sake of love. But now I realized how ridiculous that sentence was. Love is important, yes, but being with someone good is even more important. Some people, no matter how much you love them, have a rotten nature. All you get is endless hurt. Even if they learn to love you later, once you stand in their way, they will push you aside without a second thought. But choose someone with a good nature. Even if he doesn't love you yet, he will cherish your kindness. Lu Shuren was one kind, Afu was the other. As my thoughts wandered, the door opened, footsteps drew near, then the veil was lifted gently. I lifted my eyes. Afu stood before me in red wedding robes, grinning foolishly. "Young lady." I looked at him, still calling me young lady. He froze, then blushed bright red. "Then, what should I call you?" I couldn't help but laugh. He scratched his head and laughed too. Outside the window, the moonlight was perfect.